Hey guys, Magic here, and I think I'm starting to get a little bit sick, but I really wanted to record this in time for Halloween. I think I mentioned this previously, but yes, I actually did it. I wrote a short fictional story that's supposed to be creepy and entertaining and interesting, kind of Halloween-ish. Well, at least that's how it started. Then it went off the rails pretty darn quick. Seriously, this story completely sucks. It is a complete waste of your time, and if you have anything better to do with your life right now, I would recommend you do it. You may want to carefully consider what is in the suggested videos on the side and choose that instead. But if you insist on sticking around, here is my crazy Halloween story that I didn't bother making up a title for. Oh, and I swear, if you people still ask if this really happened, I am going to punch you in the spleen. This all started on the Friday right before Halloween, and Jimmy was at Friday Night Magic. The attendance was pretty decent considering the holiday weekend, but it wasn't like most of the players had anything better to do. It was a fun time because the store was all decked out in Halloween decorations and there was even free candy. Jimmy had done pretty well with his brand new experimental White Lifelink and Exile deck and had finished just high enough to get 2 packs as a prize. The first one was a dud, being Kaladesh and all, but the second one just about gave him a heart attack. It was a masterpiece mana crypt. Everybody congratulated him, well, except of course the mopey, depressed-looking net deckers who had lost to him that day. They were so used to winning, it was automatic in their own heads, so they looked shell-shocked now that they had a rare loss. Cool, now I have money for Christmas shopping. It was starting to look pretty grim this year. I really got used to that paycheck at my summer job. Now it's like totally zero income. I wish the school paid me to do homework, Jimmy told one of the friendly guys he usually chatted with at the MTG events. Dude, that's awesome. Hey, did you notice that all the tryhards finished out of the rankings for once? Today was weird, he replied. Well, hey, I beat most of them myself. I guess Colossi and Vehicles don't do so well if you exile them. Aren't those tournament-winning decks that they were playing? Jimmy's friend nodded. Well, that's sad. Whatever, I need the money. In fact, do you know Dean? He wanted one of each one of these, and I'm 99% sure he doesn't have this one. In fact, I'm texting him right now. Jimmy's friend looked at him with a smile and said, Bro, if you flip that card within 5 minutes of opening it, you'll get like 1,000 mercantile experience and level up to Grandmaster Merchant. Of course he was joking because they both played video games. Jimmy liked his funny comment and said, Hey, then cast a charisma boost because I'm asking Dean for 90% retail price. For some reason, the rounds had gone exceptionally quickly that particular night, so everybody had time to stick around and trade for a while before the shop closed. Some people made trade offers for Jimmy's new masterpiece card, but he really did need cash. Considering how much money he owed to a couple friends from school for small loans, his net value at the moment was about negative $15. He did end up making a couple rushed but good trades to help make yet another deck idea that he had in his mind, and then he left. Right after he got into his car, though, he got a text from his friend Dean saying that he would indeed pay the agreed-upon asking price. Yes, Jimmy exclaimed and happily drove off. When he got home, he unpacked his bag and put everything back in its place, but mostly he just wanted to set aside the very valuable card and keep it safe. Unfortunately, it wasn't in his trade binder, it wasn't in the normal pouch where he kept valuable cards inside of top loaders, and it didn't appear to be anywhere else in the bag. There was an awful lot of compartments in his bag though, so he tediously took out every last item. With the bag completely empty, there was still no masterpiece card to be found. Trying not to panic, Jimmy went out and checked his car. Under the seats he found a lot of change and a pen that he had been missing for a while, but no mana crypt. After thinking back to all the people who had looked at it and handled it and proposed trades for it, there were really only 2 possibilities. Either he had left it at the shop and not packed it into his bag, or someone had stolen it. Considering how unhappy the netdeckers seemed about losing to him, he couldn't rule it out, but they were pretty decent, fair people most of the time. Nobody there had ever been suspected or accused of even trade sharking, let alone theft. Without even bothering to go back inside the house, he dialed the number for the store. It felt like forever as the phone rang and rang. Jimmy nervously paced in the driveway while he waited for somebody to pick up. It was a chilly 45 degrees outside, but he was on the verge of sweating from the stressful situation. That was an awful lot of money to lose after all, and it would be quite the awkward situation if somebody did end up stealing it. Jimmy was definitely the non-confrontational type, so he didn't want to make waves accusing people of theft in case he was wrong. Unfortunately, his phone call to the gaming store went to voicemail. He checked his phone's clock and saw that the store had only closed 10 minutes prior. Nobody could clean up the entire place and leave in just 10 minutes. In fact, he had overheard the staff one time saying how late they usually were there after close, and they said at least a half an hour. If that was true, he could drive the short 8 minutes back there and see if it was there. If it wasn't there, he could discuss the possible theft situation with the staff in private, so it seemed like the most logical solution regardless. After a little hesitation while he considered other actions, he hopped into the car and started driving back to the shop. He worried that his parents would wonder why he came home and then immediately left again, but there was no time to inform them of the situation. The staff could be leaving at any second. The whole way there, he tried to shake the feeling of how it would be a bit rude to go up to the likely locked front door and knock or wave at the staff after close. Considering the situation, though, they would certainly understand. Soon he pulled into the parking lot at a pretty high speed and quickly parked across 2 parking spots. He was dismayed, though, to find that most of the lights inside the shop were completely off. He walked up to the doors anyway and saw that there was still a light on in the back near the play area. It was hard to see because of the strange layout of the store, but he assumed the staff was cleaning up in that area. He was about to knock on the door, but then he hesitated because he didn't want to make such a loud and startling noise. His personality was pretty timid most of the time and always polite, and it just seemed so rude. Just in case they hadn't locked up yet, he lightly pulled on the door handle. To his surprise, it actually swung open. He was relieved until he realized that he still had to commit the complete faux pas of annoying the staff by walking in after hours and interrupting their work. Mana Crypt was worth an awful lot of money though, so he bravely continued on. To his surprise, he got to the play area and the lights were on, but the staff was nowhere to be found. For a moment he thought maybe they had left, made a mistake with the front door being unlocked, and now he was trespassing. The thought got his heart pounding pretty hard for sure, but he quietly reminded himself that logically someone had to still be in the office or the storage area in the very back. He wanted to call out to whoever was working that night, but he simply couldn't remember the staff members' names. He was always so bad with names. So instead of yelling something stupid and generic, he simply walked quietly to the back office. It was pretty much a given that he'd startle whoever was there, but he was motivated at this point. As he turned the corner, he started to say something, but then saw that there was nobody actually in the office. Whatever, they must be in the storage room, he thought to himself. In fact, the second he left the office, he heard soft talking coming from the next door down, which of course led to the rather large storage room. As he slowly approached the doorway, he noticed that the lights weren't on, but there appeared to be a soft orange flickering. It looked an awful lot like a fire, and it made him pause for a second. Either the storage room was on fire, or somebody had candles in there for some reason. If the lights weren't working, he was pretty sure that the staff had flashlights on their phones, of course. So there really was no reason to have candles in there. People only lit candles to do something unusual, so the second thought started streaking through Jimmy's mind. In case there was legitimately something on fire, though, he decided to just be bold and see what was going on. He took a deep breath to get up his courage and then peeked around the corner into the room. The answer was immediately apparent about the light. There were in fact a bunch of candles lit in the room. That wasn't what caught Jimmy's attention though. Standing around in a circle were a bunch of people, but it was too dim to tell who they actually were. It also didn't help that they were all wearing long robes with huge hoods, and after a few seconds of him staring at them trying to figure out what they were doing, one of them looked right at him. So that he didn't look suspicious or exceptionally weird, instead of assuming they were up to no good and running away, he stepped through the doorway casually. Despite being very distracted by the unusual situation, Jimmy couldn't pass up on the joke that instantly came to his mind. It was pure gold, after all. Guys, you can't all cosplay Jace. Somebody at least has to be Gideon, he told them with a smile, and tried not to let on that he was a bit concerned about the cult-looking robes and standing in a circle with candles thing. Whatever weirdness was going on, he wanted no part of it, but he certainly did want his mana crypt back. Now everybody in the room turned to stare at him, and the guy who had first seen him said, "Oh great, it's Jimmy." Now that his eyes adjusted to the dim light, he noticed that at least 2 of the people were the ones he had beat in round 1 and 2 at Friday Night Magic. Since none of them were saying anything further, he brushed off the insulting-sounding statement and said, "So anyway, I don't want to interrupt whatever you guys are doing, but has anybody seen my mana crypt that I just pulled? I got home and it wasn't in my bag." Now that the people with their backs turned had spun around, he could see them all clearly. Every single one of them was one of the net-decking not-so-nice types that came to F&M, plus one of the newer staff members from the shop. They were all dressed alike, and it was very strange. As soon as one of them moved, he saw the table that they were standing around contained a bunch of candles, a small fishbowl with a single fish swimming in it, and his mana crypt in the same top loader that he had put it in originally. "Oh, there it is! You guys found it! Awesome!" Jimmy said and slipped between 2 of them and grabbed it. He strongly suspected that somebody stole it, as opposed to them just keeping it nearby so that they could give it back to him later, but he decided to give them the benefit of the doubt just to keep it civil for the time being. "Thanks, guys, I thought I lost it," he continued and prepared to make a hasty exit. Curiosity got the best of him, though, and he paused in the doorway, turned around, and asked, "So, are you guys doing some kind of Dungeons & Dragons overnight lock-in event type thing or something?" Everybody looked at one of the guys as if he was their leader and was the one expected to answer for them. After a pause to think, the guy finally responded in a low voice, "Our net decks failed, so we must consult with the great and powerful one to see what we were doing wrong and if there is a more powerful deck available that can beat anything." He looked down at the fish while he said it, so Jimmy smiled and asked, "The fish?" The guy looked offended and replied, "This isn't just any fish. It's the great MTG Goldfish. It's the keeper of all knowledge and wisdom in Magic the Gathering." Jimmy burst out laughing and asked, "Isn't that one stupid statistics website everybody uses to copy everybody else, and it covers all tournaments and crap and basically ruins the game for everybody?" No, it is a literal goldfish. The goldfish existed before time and the universe was created. The website is simply a mockery impersonating him, the guy replied angrily. Jimmy felt relieved because now he was certain they were joking and said, "You guys are too much. Anyway, thanks for holding on to it. I gotta go." The person closest to Jimmy grabbed his arm firmly and refused to let him go, though, saying menacingly, "You can't leave now that you know the secrets of our inner circle." Jimmy suddenly didn't feel quite as at ease. He sternly said, "Very funny, guys. My parents probably wonder why I'm not home, so I have to go." He tried to shake free of the guy's grasp, but it only made him hold on even more firmly. "You cannot leave until the goldfish allows it," their leader said, and pulled out a strange-looking dagger from under his hooded cloak. It was definitely bladed and definitely sharp. Now Jimmy wasn't 100% sure that they were just joking around. They were all incredibly unfriendly and over-serious while playing Magic, so it seemed appropriate that they would also be creepy cult members and psychopathic killers. Well, at least the possibility of that ran through his head. With whatever the heck was going on in the back room, Jimmy wasn't too keen on coming back to that particular store anyway. It was just a bit too weird at this point. He thought it could all be an elaborate prank on him, but it seemed a little bit less likely because they had no idea he was actually going to drive back to the store, and they certainly could have answered the phone to then instruct him to return and then prank him that way. Regardless of it being a prank or completely real, he was starting to get extremely uncomfortable. With no intention on ever playing Magic with these weirdos again, he decided to take action. He decided to boldly state, "Okay, well you guys are taking this prank way too far, and it's not very funny, so I've got a not-so-funny prank for you, too." As quickly as he could, he pulled out the can of pepper spray that he always carried around with him in his pocket. He switched the safety off and blasted it into the guy's face who was holding him. That, of course, instantly made him let go. "Have fun with this," he said, and sprayed it back and forth in the air, then pulled the door to the very enclosed storage room closed. Then he put both hands on the door handle and braced his leg against the metal door frame. There was no way any of them could open the door despite them trying. Now that he had actually done it, Jimmy second-guessed his decision. If it really was a prank, they deserved it a little bit in his mind, but it seemed like a little bit much. If not, well, he had to get out of there quickly regardless. He heard coughing and yelling and angry threats coming through the door, but none of them could actually get the handle to turn. Unfortunately, the door was fairly new and kind of a cheapy wooden door, and suddenly the knife that he had seen earlier plunged through the door and just missed his elbow by a few inches. "Whoa!" Jimmy yelled and let go of the door. A split second later, the door flew open and a coughing guy in a hood came out and lunged at him. Jimmy scrambled away, but the guy caught him by the ankle and tripped him. Jimmy kicked him and flailed his leg until he let go, but another of the weird cult members came out and tried to climb over his friend. Jimmy scrambled to his feet, but the fall had hurt his ankle slightly and the pain was shooting up his leg. Knowing he couldn't beat them in a foot race, even considering their coughing and lack of vision, he took the pepper spray out of his pocket, pointed it at them, and said, "Stay back or I'll hit you again." The guy on the ground lunged for his ankle again, but he jumped out of the way just in time. Without even thinking, Jimmy stomped hard on his hand, then kicked him as hard as he could in the head. It instantly knocked him out. Jimmy was shocked at what he had just done, but there was no turning back now. These people were out to get him, and he had to get away no matter what. As a third member came stumbling out of the room, the second one climbed over his unconscious friend and chased Jimmy out into the play area. He was so close behind him, but Jimmy couldn't put the full weight on his ankle to break away. He just wasn't fast enough, so the guy eventually tackled him into a table that contained materials for new players. The quick reference guides, phase cards, fat pack booklets, and deck builder's toolkit reference inserts flew everywhere. As they both recovered from crashing into the table, one of the builder's toolkit posters about how to build a deck slowly parachuted through the air like a leaf falling off of a tree. It landed softly on the face of Jimmy's attacker. Suddenly, he heard a sizzling noise, and when the guy pulled it off his face, Jimmy saw that there was a burn mark on his cheek. "Ah, the sacrilege! It burns!" Jimmy heard him cry. He thought about it for a second, and it did actually make sense. NetDecker's greatest weakness were rogue deck promoting materials and guides. Jimmy thought quickly and then grabbed one of the Fat Pack booklets, frantically flipped to the page that showed what the top 10 anticipated cards from the set were, then held it against his attacker's face. It burned even more and he struggled around until he finally passed out from the sheer pain of it. Jimmy got up, rolled the booklet into a makeshift club, and hobbled over towards the next robe-wearing weirdo. He hit him squarely in the face while traveling down the hallway, and his hair burst into flames from the sheer force of it. He quickly put his hood back up and patted his hair, so Jimmy took the chance to kick him square in the groin, which disabled him enough to make a break for it. Instead of going for the front door in freedom, he knew that there was only one true solution to the problem permanently. At this point, they were not going to let this go, and there was only one way to stop net deckers of this level. Ever since he started playing Magic, he had heard rumors that some players got that far into net decking to the point where it had become an obsession, but he never thought he'd meet a group like that in person. Luckily, Jimmy had kept a fistful of loose anti-net decking paraphernalia from the table in his other hand, and when yet another cult member tried to stop him in the hallway, he threw the entire pile at them and burst past him. When he got to the storage room, club still in hand, he saw the staff member from the store standing over the Goldfish bowl, still trying to rub the pepper spray from his eyes. Jimmy stared at him and then said, "You know, I was trying to be polite before, but I really do hate net deckers." The staff member replied, "Yes, but net deckers will always be more powerful than rogue deck builders like you." "You want to bet?" Jimmy replied. Then he quickly made a motion like he was going to jab him in the face with his improvised weapon. The staff member ducked, so he took the opportunity to pull back his jab and then take a hard swing at the MTG Goldfish bowl. He swung with all of his might, and luckily it was just enough to shatter the glass. The water spilled out all over the table, and as soon as the air hit the MTG Goldfish, it burst into flames. The staff member that was guarding him screamed, "No!" And then suddenly flames erupted from behind the table. Similar anguished cries came from the hallway as well. All that was left in the place of the staff member was an empty robe full of ashes. The Goldfish ceased to exist, and as soon as he did, the power linking the Goldfish to the net deckers incinerated them instantly. As he slowly walked on his throbbing ankle through the store, he noticed every single robe full of ashes and nobody left in sight. Fatigue and the pain from his ankle were immense as he tried to make his way back to the front of the store. When he finally put his hand on the door bar and pushed against it to try to get out, he realized that the door was locked. It wasn't locked on the way in, and as far as he knew, nobody else was out in the front. It didn't make sense, but then suddenly, Jimmy woke up. It was all a dream, which made sense because honestly, the logic of it made no sense. Why would he just assume net deckers are crazy cultists who burst into flames when you destroy MTG Goldfish? It sort of made sense, but really only in a dream where everything seems to make sense. Or was it? Either way, Jimmy decided that he's probably been watching too much of Desolator Magic's channel, and he decided that tomorrow maybe he'd spend a little bit more time watching another channel. Like for example, Lazy Masquerade, who does way better horror narrations than I do. So yeah, that's my crappy story I wrote while I was really bored at work. It was meant to be like really clever and creepy, but I kind of put it off until like this morning, so I wrote it all in a hurry, and that's why it absolutely sucks. Also, apparently I'm really bad at narration. I mean, half the time you guys have no idea, but I'm reading a script word for word, but apparently it only lends itself to like informational videos. Fiction and voice acting, ooh, leave me out of it, because that was bad. Oh, and I think we all know I don't have the skills to animate it either. Have you seen my drawing on Twitter that I just posted? I think my 3-year-old niece could do better. So anyway, hopefully you weren't too thoroughly creeped out by this amazing horror story for Halloween. I think that if there's one thing we can take away from it, it's that MTG Goldfish sucks and they've done even more damage to the game than even Wizards themselves, and that's really saying something. Screw you, MTG Goldfish, and your stupid pro net decking agenda. Take your stats and shove them. I hope you get attacked by evil clowns while you're trick-or-treating. That said, hopefully you guys have a happy Halloween, and I'll see you next video.